WFNY FM. Home of the Opie and Anthony Show, the Doghouse with JD and Elvis, and the Radio Chick. This is 92.3 Free FM, New York.
Free FM. Please welcome to the Free FM airwaves, legendary talk show host, Bob Grant, visiting us for 1 hour on 92.3 Free FM.
Well, that is certainly appropriate to play that theme song of mine, especially since Rocky VI is debuting in just a couple of weeks. And here I am debuting in a great radio station, and I tell you something, I'm just overwhelmed because I'm here at the famous 92.3 FM, and I've met JV and Elvis, and I know somewhere skulking around the halls, Opie and Anthony. Hey, I'm in the big time. This is Bob Grant, and I'm delighted to be here. Get me in front of a microphone, and that's it. I come alive. I'm like Dracula. When the, conditions are right, he comes out. And what else can I say except we'll try to do the best we can here in this hour. And as always, I remind you, somebody's got to say the things you're going to hear. It has to be me. Have you ever watched the internet and looked at the New York radio message board? Well, I have, and I found it very interesting, and I want to thank, even though not all of these people were happy to hear that I was going to be here at 92.3 FM, I want to thank Richard A. Riley, Barry Weiss, Neil Adams, Nick Grippy, Joe P., Anthony Anastasio, Josh Emmert, Walt, Neil Adams, Alan Sniffen, Dick F., Alan D., Elad, Greg Tallman, Stephanie Weil, and, well, I know you've been overwhelmed by those famous names, but I thought I'd just thank them because they wrote to the message board and talked about the fact that I was going to be here today. And guess what? This wouldn't be the Bob Grant program if I didn't give you a phone number, and I'm going to do that right now. It's 1-866-313-FREE. If you're like me and you don't like the words, you rather have the numbers, 1-866-313-3733. 313-3733. All right, let's see. There's so much to talk about. That's what makes being on the radio, especially in the New York City area, such an exciting job. I don't look upon it as a job, but speaking of a job, I'm glad I'm not on the job. That's the way police talk about being active in the police force, being on the job. But who wants to be on the job when every time you try to do your duty to protect and to serve, and if heavens forbid somebody gets killed and it isn't you, then you're going to be held to account. By who? By elected authorities? Absolutely not. By unelected authorities. By people who have their authority on the basis of fear. That's right, fear. Fear of what Al Sharpton might say about you. Fear of what Jesse Jackson might say about you. Well, they're entitled to say anything they want. I mean, after all, the First Amendment applies to them, too. Although sometimes they forget it applies to others as well. And I'm appalled and absolutely disgusted with what they're doing in the wake of the unfortunate shooting of Sean Bell. Now, yes, it is a shame that Sean Bell died in that situation, and you know what I'm talking about. but they are turning him into a martyr. New York's anti-cop forces have roared back to life, thanks to that fatal shooting of an unarmed man a week ago. And what is the press doing? Aha! Fawning over Al, fawning over Herbert Daughtry, fawning over Charles Barron, and other hate mongers in and out of city government as they accuse the police of widespread mistreatment of blacks and issue barely veiled threats of riots if they do not get justice. Now, you got to step back. You got to step back and give this some serious thought. We have elected officials. We have a mayor who has gone out of his way to be as fair as possible. We have a police chief that has been lauded time and time again by members of the black community. We have people who are in responsible positions and very sensitive positions who certainly are aware of their responsibilities. But the allegation that last weekend's shooting was racially motivated is preposterous. A group of undercover officers working in a gun and drug-plagued strip joint in Queens had good reason to believe that a party leaving the club was armed and about to shoot an adversary. So, you know, when one of the undercovers identified himself as an officer, the car holding the party twice tried to run him down. I wonder if you know that. And the officers started firing while yelling to the car's occupants, "Let me see your hands." What I'm telling you is not just hearsay. What I'm telling you is not just imaginary. It is absolute fact. And this officer's colleagues, believing they were under attack, fired as well, eventually shooting off 50 rounds and killing the driver. That's true. Sean Bell had no gun. No gun was found in the car. But witnesses and video footage confirm that a fourth man in the party fled the scene once the altercation began. And Bell and the other man with him all had been arrested for illegal possession of guns in the past. I bet you didn't know that. And one of Bell's companions that night, Joseph Guzman, had spent considerable time in prison, including for an armed robbery in which he shot at his victim. Now, I don't want to take up our precious time in going over this story, but I think it is very important that all of us, regardless of our racial composition, regardless of our political views, realize this could be a very serious thing. The consequences could unfold to such an extent that we would all regret it. Now, some people might have thought I'd be spending more time talking about Iraq. What is there to say except the New York Post predictably breaks ranks with all the other newspapers apparently in the country, certainly in the city, by headlining "Surrender Monkeys." And they're garbed as a surrender monkey, James Baker and Lee Hamilton. And it is a surrender. You know, what absolutely kills me is when you hear people on the networks, and I'm thinking in particular of CNN and MSNBC, when you hear them talk about the president will have to listen to the panel. As far as the panel is concerned, what does, let's see, how about Ed Meese, former Attorney General? What does he know about the Iraq situation? Answer, nothing, not ningun. Let's see. Who else? Vernon Jordan. Vernon Jordan is a great attorney, great political operative, charming man. Everybody likes him. Everybody wants to be seen in photos with him. But guess what? Vernon Jordan, be the first to tell you, he doesn't know anything about Iraq and the Middle East situation. Sandra Day O'Connor, ha! That's my comment about her. Ha! Why don't you go back to Arizona and forget we ever heard of you? All right, I see people are calling in. How do you like that? They know that the number is 1-866-313-FREE. That's 1-866-313-3733. So I'm not going to keep you waiting any longer. I know it's going to be a great thrill for you to actually tell your children or your grandchildren or whoever, I talked to Bob Grant. Bill, you're talking to Bob Grant on Free FM right now.
Hey, Bob Grant, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How about you?
Hey, pretty good. I just wanted to comment. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, they're making it so hard for NYPD to do the job now with everything going on that it's getting to a point now they might as well not carry guns or even call them now, especially when they're undercover in a situation like that.
Absolutely. I think what I would do if I were the police commissioner, I would say, hey, fellas, those guns are heavy. By the way, those Glocks are automatics. You press the trigger and it reels off, about 12 shots. I would say, look, leave the guns at home. Don't even bother with the badge. Don't even bother with the uniform. But if there's trouble, just show up. Show some identification and say, gee, I'm sorry that there's trouble here. You victims will just have to lie there, and we're not going to bother about your assailants. All right, let's go to Brooklyn. Say hello to Jason on Free 92 FM. Are you there?
Bob.
Yes.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm having trouble hearing you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on, like, the NYPD.
Yeah, go ahead,
I
Jason.
don't really know, like, what's going on with them in the precincts and stuff, but I'm 20 years old. Can you hear me?
Yes?
I'm 20 years old, and, like, just from being outside and having the cops, I got arrested 4 times already for just, like, not having an ID on me or being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And my mom's had to come pick me up from the police precinct 4 times. And the undercover cops, they have no respect for the black community. They just run up on us, and they demand stuff. They're not working for the people. They're working for themselves.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you about your own experience, because if this is your impression, if this is what happened to you, then you have every right to feel that way. But we don't know the facts surrounding your encounter. We don't know why you have this first impression. What were you doing, Jason? Were you doing something suspicious?
Not at all. Because I'm 6'3", 250 pounds, and my cousins and my friends are, like, pretty close to my size and whatnot. But just from us gathering together, they just run up on us, stand over here, you stand here, and, like, they just order us around. And, like, we can't even say nothing because some of us get hit by the cops.
Well, you didn't get arrested, did you?
Yeah, I get arrested for stuff like that.
You got arrested for what?
For just being there, for just standing around. And I'm there with my friends and my family, and it was like, oh, you don't have an ID, and you're arrested.
Well, Jason, I'm not going to judge you. I have no right to judge you, but I do have to believe, based on my experience talking to people on the telephone on the Bob Grant program, that quite often they leave out some salient facts, and maybe we don't know the whole story. Anyway, I hope you stay out of trouble, Jason. I really do, and I thank you very much for calling me on 92.3 FM. And here's Pete from Long Island checking in on the Bob Graham program. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Hey, how's it going, Bob?
Yes.
I got a lot of friends of mine that are NYPD, and I know they got it rough over there. I applied for NYPD, but these guys got it rough. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm from Long Island now, and I just think it took too many shots to stop the car. First, try to run them over twice. I mean...
You're on the job.
You're on the job. You put your life on the line. It's tough.
Now, when you hear about this Sean Bell story, and day after day after day, you hear these eulogies. They talk about him like he's some great contributor to society, and yet the man had a questionable past.
It's very questionable. I mean, I saw him on TV crying and everything like that, but...
Well, that's understandable. I don't begrudge anybody crying over the loss of this fellow. After all, if you were his soon-to-be wife, you would be crying too. But my problem is that as time goes on, people are going to forget that the police had good reason to be suspicious of what was going on in that automobile. And... the public is going to forget that, and before you know it, there'll be a day in honor of Mr. Bell. Thank you very much, Pete. Appreciate the call. And let's see here. It feels so good to get in front of a microphone, folks. I got to tell you, make that confession. 92.3 FM, Bob Grant, and Jack checking in right now from New Jersey. Hello, Jack.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Just fine.
Hey, listen, first thing, I want to say something about that other caller who said that the cops ran up on him and put him in jail for nothing. I'd love to see that police report. It was probably something more like he stole somebody's wallet or something like that. And I also want to say something about Sharpton. He's a showboating loser who always comes to the aid of every unnecessary cause.
Well, don't forget, if the media would stop running to him with cameras, microphones, recording equipment, and waiting with bated breath to hear what he says, then he really wouldn't be anybody. I mean, you know, the media, so right away it's Al Sharpton, Al Sharpton, Al Sharpton. He was on virtually every single program you can imagine. And why? Why are they so fascinated with him? Why? Because he says the things that get people riled up, and he can say whatever he wants. Nobody's going to call him a racist.
Yeah, right. The only thing is you know...
Okay, Jack, I appreciate the call. I thank you very much. 92.3 FM. I am very impressed with the callers thus far, and... I have to give credit to the people who've been on ahead of me. That must be, we'll have to give credit to JV and Elvis, and before them, Opie and Anthony. What a lineup. Straight ahead.
The Yahoo Talent Show finals are here. Go to talentshow.yahoo.com to see who made it to the finals, and then vote on December 12th and 13th.
Free FM.
Here we are, and it's 92.3 Free FM indeed. Bob Grant here. Whoa. How many people fell out of their chairs because I said my name? I can't believe it. What's the person doing on that radio station? What? What's up? Well, I'm pleased. Let's say hello to Rick from New Jersey. Rick, you're on 92.3 Free FM.
Wow, it's so good to hear you on the radio again, Bob, and on FM no less. Is this the first time you ever been on FM, Bob?
No, not the first, but first time I've been on such a big powerhouse.
Well, I'm glad to have you back because I'm a big fan. I've got a request for you, Bobby. Could you play Funky Town for me?
I had a hunch it was going to be that. I really had a hunch it was going to be that, and now I know that I'm doing the Bob Grant program. We had gone several phone calls without a AAA Cicola, a guy who just escaped. By the way, I have it on good information that caller identifying himself as Rick from New Jersey just escaped from Marlboro State, where he was in Ward C in the East Wing. And that is a section of the mental institution which specializes in people who got wet brains from too much self-gratification, too much autoeroticism, too much you-know-what. right, let's go to Brian in Brooklyn. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Mr. Grant. Great to hear you on the radio on FM again. Thank you for being here, and thanks to Tom Chiazzano for having you. I just wanted to say that, this incident was a tragic, unfortunate incident, and it's being blown totally out of proportion. Yes, there were 50 rounds fired, but in the heat of what you're feeling to be battle, shots being fired at you, you don't stay there and count and say 1, 2, 3, 4. You shoot until you feel that the threat has stopped. And this is just simply what happened.
Well, absolutely. I mean, they want, and I'm afraid it's not going to be too hard for them to, when I say they, I'm talking about the Sharptons, people like that. It's not going to be difficult for them to embed in the black community's mind that these cops were out to do harm. Of course they weren't. I mean, what in heaven's name? Just think, here it is, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, at a place that has a reputation, deservedly so, of being a place where drugs were sold, where various criminal acts were planned and talked about. And of course the police had every reason to be suspicious, and their suspicions were well-founded. But thanks to the mealy-mouthed media, thanks to the community at large, who are so afraid of the R word. I don't know if you heard the gentleman, I believe it was JV, or was it Elvis? Anyway, one of them asked me the question about being a racist. Well, what is a racist? Is a racist a person who is unafraid to tell it like it is about individuals? I'll bet you very few people listening to me right now have ever read a Thomas Sowell column or a Derek Murdoch column. DeRoy Murdoch. No relation to the owner of Fox. And several other, Shelby Steele, several other black writers who say essentially the very same thing I'm saying. So the fact of the matter is we can't be cowed. We can't be intimidated. And if we're going to be intimidated, if we're going to be frightened of telling it like it is, then forget about it. It's all over. Thank you very much. I appreciate the call. Let's say hello to, what do we have here? Brett? Do we have Brett checking in right now? I think we do. Hello,
Hi, Bob.
Brett.
How are you?
Okay.
Yes, this is Brett from Westchester.
Oh, all right.
I had a quick question for you, Bob. Have you ever lived in a very poor area at any point in your life?
Have I ever what?
Have you ever lived in a very poor area anywhere in the United States at any point in your life?
In a court area?
Poor, where people don't have a lot of money.
Oh. Now, why do you ask?
Because I was just curious. You know, you have a lot of opinion on what happened in this very poor area, and I was just curious if your opinion comes from real-world experience of growing up possibly in a poor area or maybe in your middle years. Have you ever lived in a very poor area for any period of time?
Well, I think what you're suggesting is that in a what you call a poor area, that people are treated differently. Is that what you're leading up to?
I want to know if you have any real world experience living in a poor area, because you do have an opinion on this, and I do not think, and I could be wrong, that you have any real world experience with what these people go through on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis with the police, with anything. And you're sitting from the outside, probably growing up in a middle class or maybe even middle upper, and you're looking at this populace and saying things about them where you are clueless on the day-to-day struggles and what they have to go through.
Well, you say day-to-day struggle. I think you're exaggerating. You say day-to-day struggle. The guy, you mean a man or a woman walks out of his apartment and immediately he's confronted by the police?
I'll say this. If these people are growing up with parents that are not there, that don't give a darn about education, about anything.
Wait a minute, you say they're growing up with parents that aren't there. How are they born if they didn't have parents?
That's a great question. I'm talking about parents that are not raising them, that are also doing drugs and also robbing. They have no role models and are in total survival mode, so they have to steal to live.
Well, nobody's talking about stealing. Don't tell me about stealing to live. While I was coming here to the studio, I counted dozens, literally dozens of young people who you might say did come from the poor community, and guess what? They were all on cell phones. So don't give me that poor crap. Cut it out already. And I'll tell you something else. When I was a kid, and it wasn't that long ago that I can't remember, Sonny, but when I was a kid, there were a couple of bicycles parked in front of a drugstore, and my friends and I came out of the drugstore and started to pick up our bikes. They were ours, and a cop came along, and he says, whose bikes are these? And I said, well, this is mine. He said, well, get it out of here or I'm going to tell your old man. Now, that was the most frightening thing any police officer could say to me or any school teacher could say to me when I was a kid. I'm going to tell your old man. Thank you very much, pal, and I won't tell your old man about the stupid thing you attempted to say. Let's say hello to Joe checking in right now on Free FM, officially 92.3 Free FM. Yes, Joe.
How's it going?
Just
I just
great.
wanted to say, they're making a big deal about this. I mean, it's a tragedy. Yeah, the guy was shot before his wedding day and killed. But you know what? If it was a white guy, it would have been 2 days in the paper, and that's the end of it, There was a guy down south. He got shot 23 times, a white guy. Did anybody ever hear of anything of it? No, nothing. You know what? It happens no matter who it is, what it is. But you know what? Who's the real racist? Us or the other people, you know what I'm saying? Because they make a big deal out of everything. Everything they say is a big deal. If something happens to us, you know what? We let it go. It happens. That's the way of life. Whether it's tragic, whether it's something that never should have happened, hey, but life goes on, right?
They want to see Officer McDonald's all over the place. That's an officer who has been in a wheelchair most of his life because he hesitated when a 15-year-old was pointing a gun at him, and he hesitated. He thought, gee, I don't know if I want to, I don't think I ought to shoot this young fellow. He hesitated, and now this guy has been in a wheelchair. Some others are quite dead. So a police officer has to think quickly. He has a very sensitive job, and people don't make it any easier. Thank you very much, Joe. And by the way, folks, I don't give police carte blanche. I don't say, hey, listen, they're all just great, peachy keen. But I think when it comes to a situation such as the Sean Bell shooting, it's quite obvious what happened, and we shouldn't even be pointing fingers at them. Having an investigation, sure, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But these guys want to, well, they're organizing a lynch party, for heaven's sake. Michelle checking in now from New Jersey. Hello, Michelle. No, she's not there. All right, let's try John. John, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, Dave. How are you?
I'm just fine.
My hat's got to come off to you because you're telling it how it is. I'm a 20-year retired NYPD detective. Worked in Bed-Stuy for about 12 years of my career. I'm so sick and tired of everyone pulling the race card on this. It was an unfortunate thing. It happens. If it was 5 white kids in Staten Island, you would never hear about it. Everybody that lives in Bed-Stuy, they're there for a reason. I worked in the projects. You can move out. If things are that bad, you can move. No one's holding you there. So I'm glad to see that some people do say how it is. I mean, the media really doesn't tell the truth a lot of times.
You got it. Thank you very much. Let's say hello to Anthony checking in right now. Anthony, are you there, Anthony? Anthony in Brooklyn. All right, let's try Gary in Brooklyn.
The great one is back where he belongs. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn is Bob Grant country. How are you, Bob? Great to hear you on New York radio again.
Well, you know, I'm glad you mentioned Bensonhurst and places like that, because Bensonhurst was the first community many years ago to proclaim itself wall-to-wall Bob Grant country.
And it still is, my friend. Welcome back. I hope they keep you on the station. I hope that this isn't temporary. It's not the same without you, my friend. Now, my question is, I want to talk about Charles Barron.
Yes.
How does an elected official
yes.
who openly hates white people, who openly makes threats against people, especially the white community, as he likes to say, how is this guy not being disciplined by the spineless New York City Council? Why can't we go after this guy for the irresponsible comments that he makes, and how does this guy keep his job?
By virtue of the fact that he was blessed with enough melanin. That's why. He gets a pass. Listen, if you were to turn Charles Barron into a white guy and have him say the same things about white people, about black people rather, that he says about white people, I think he'd be in a lot of trouble. But because he's Charles Barron in the year 2006, he can say virtually, I'll take out the virtually, he can say anything he wants. And folks, that's the truth, I'm afraid to say. All right, who are we going to go to now here on the Bob Grant program at 1-866-313-FREE. That's 1-866-313-3733. And is it Anthony from Brooklyn with us now? Okay, Anthony, go ahead, please.
Hey, Bob, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with you, Bob.
Yes, go ahead. What do you want to talk about, Anthony?
Hey, I just want to say that most of the views that people have are due to the experiences that they've had in the city. Myself, born and raised in Brooklyn, and the views that I have are through my experiences. And I felt as growing up as a child and into an adult that as a white male, we were basically taught to almost feel guilty for the actions of the past that were brought amongst the blacks. And to this point, it doesn't work with me. I don't buy into that. I mean, what's your thought on that?
Well, I think you've made a very important observation. Unfortunately, you're absolutely correct. This sense of guilt that people have is really destroying us. And I've talked to people who know nothing about the vicissitudes of the past, and they have this sense of guilt. And, you know, they learn it in school. They hear it all the time, as though they themselves were slave owners. I don't know a slave owner. I haven't met a slave owner in my life. Have you? And
no, I have not.
You know, you really put your finger on something very important, Anthony, and that is our misplaced sense of guilt. Michelle checking in right now. Hello, Michelle.
Yes. Hi. How are you, Bob?
I'm just fine.
I'm a black female. I've lived in both New Jersey and in New York. I've also lived in what they call the hood. And I apologize. I have no idea who you are, but I am flabbergasted by what you're telling us from what you know about the case of, you know, about the club having a reputation for something, how the backgrounds of these guys, I understand that you might have gotten this information either from the media, newspaper, from the radio. You cannot even rely on the news, the web reports on a day-to-day basis. You cannot rely on what's being said on certain channels about Iraq. What makes you such a specialist on what went on, what backgrounds of these people were? How do you know they didn't turn their lives around? How do you know what they went through? I lived in a community that was crime-ridden.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with the events on that particular night or that particular early in the morning. We're not doing the life story of Sean Bell or anybody else for that matter. What we're talking about is the situation as it occurred out there in Queens on that particular night. And we do have the facts that have been assembled. Nobody disputes the fact that the call was made. Nobody disputes the fact that the undercover cop inside, who happened to be black himself, for heaven's sake, had said someone had a gun. Nobody disputes that. So you imply that I'm just making all this up. And I would suggest to you that you, too, could have this information. Do I set myself up as an authority? No, just a guy with opinions who is not afraid to express them. Tony in the Bronx. Go right ahead, Tony.
Hey, how you doing, Bob? The voice of reason. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing just fine because I'm in good company. Go ahead, please.
All right, this is what I want to know. This is regarding Al Slim Shady Sharpton and Charles Racist Barron. Where were those two idiots when those two undercover officers, they got executed? I didn't see them calling for justice, you know? Where were those two morons, those two clowns? You know, they always make everything a race issue, these guys. I'm sick and tired of it, man. Every time I see these guys out there stirring up the pot of racism, you know, it's like they want a rally. But where were those two guys when those two undercover officers were executed? That's what I want to know. I didn't see them protesting.
Well, of course, it must be wonderful to be Al Sharpie Sharpton. It must be wonderful to wake up and think that people are afraid of you, that the media will run over if you announce you're going to go to the toilet, and maybe they'll want to cover it. The event. You know, it's just incredible what we've come to in this country. And we had a caller a little while ago who I think really put his finger on the root of the problem, and that is this misplaced white guilt. And we have no universal guilt that we should put on our shoulders. We are individuals, and we should be held accountable for what we do as individuals. Daryl, I'm saying hello to you right now on Free 92.3 FM. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's not necessarily the fact that black, because I live in East New York, the murder capital of New York right now. That's not, but the thing is, I'm not saying that white people should feel that they should feel guilty about some of the things that happen. It's just that at the same time, how you don't feel you don't feel you should be pressured into feeling guilty. We don't know what to do with some of the rage that we have about being policed by people who don't live in our community, but they come in to police us and tell us what's going on. And not to say that they're wrong or right, because I live right around the corner from the precinct. I know good cops, I know bad cops. But a lot of the times what happens is that fear that they have of the unknown, the fear that they feel that, oh, all these people are against us, they react a lot differently once they become comfortable in these situations.
All right. I'm hearing a lot of good common sense here, and I'm very pleased that you're sharing it with us. I thank you very much. Make no mistake, though. Make no mistake, if you're a student of history, and that has always been my favorite subject, you know that there have been transgressions, but we have corrected them, for heaven's sake. We're acting like it's still 1940, 1950. A lot has happened in that time. Ben. No, not there. All right, let's go to Al in the Bronx, I believe. We have Al. Go right ahead. Al, Bob Grant. Okay, let's go to Donnie from the Bronx. Donnie.
How you doing, Bob?
Just fine.
I don't want to make pretend that racism doesn't exist, because it absolutely does. But I think that what these big guys like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are doing are really hurting. You know, it's not taking care of the issue. You know, maybe not the best comparison, but when a kid in school cries about being made fun of, he gets made fun of more. In order to move past it, he's got to move beyond it. And I don't feel that they're doing that. I feel like it's like an added crush that they're putting on.
You know, I can't help but think as I listen to you that I wonder if we in New York, we in America, we'll be having the same conversation 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Will it go on and on and on? I don't think so. I have a little more hope for the human race than that. Ben in Queens, welcome to the program.
Yes.
Go right ahead, Ben. What's on your mind?
Yes. I'm a school teacher, and I just want to reflect the idea that was said by the earlier caller. We had this boy in our class that was overweight, and the guys, wanted to pick on the fact that he was overweight, and they kept on saying, "Hey, you're a fatty." And he said, "You know what? I am fat." And he would jump around. He'd make a joke out of it, and once, and he would literally just, shake his body, and they'd all say, "Okay, he's fat." But after a while, they realized, hey, he's cool with that. He's cool with the fact that he's fat. He's not making a big deal out of it. He's not crying about it. He said, "Hey, I'm fat. Leave me alone. I have an overweight problem." They saw. And after a while, they just left him alone. And I really feel that when people go ahead and they pull the race card, and I'm going to throw an affirmative action in this also, I think all of these ideas where we're going ahead and we're making these concessions and we're making these big deals, we are being racist by being that sensitive. We are being racist by having things like affirmative action. We are being racist by blowing this thing out of the water and making the cops into the bad guys. When I dial 911, I want that cop there. I want him defending and protecting my family, and I really don't care about race, whether he's black or he's white. These officers go out every day, they strap guns to their belts, and they're putting their lives on the line every day. Their wives don't know if they're going to see their husbands come home that night, And, what are we doing here? People are not looking at the facts. Yeah. And when people go ahead and call people and they make this whole race thing, they're being racist.
Very good, Ben. Let's see. Ben was in Queens. We've got CQ in Queens right here at the Bob Grant program. Go right ahead, CQ. CQ? Oh, I sounded so positive about that. How do you like that? Mike in New York? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. This is Mike. Look, how do you callers know what's going on with the black community? First of all, let me say something, because you're too old to understand what's going on. Before you say anything and cut me off, let me say this real quick. Are you listening? Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, look. Those cops, right?
Yes.
I'm in the Bronx at times, and I drive a Mercedes-Benz, a 06. Let me find out, they do bother you. They do harass you. The callers do not know what goes on in the black community. You know why? Because they're white. So the guys that come and say this and that, some of the cops, undercover cops, do harass. And no one could tell me they don't, because I had that incident several times. So there's no way I'm going to believe you. And don't say that until you know what the facts.
Mike, I take it you have had a bad personal experience?
Several times, because you know what? I'm an engineer. I have money. I hang out with friends, and you know what? I drive nice cars, and they always harass, and they attempt, they harass you into getting into the argument with them so they could do something.
What constitutes harassment?
Okay, first, if I'm driving on the block, they will actually come up behind you, stop you for no reason at all, ask for papers all the time, and then they would act all like cocky, like what you gonna do? I'm driving down the block one day. This guy pulled out of nowhere right in front of my car. I stopped really quick, and he's like, and what? These are undercover cops that have nothing to do, because something's going on in the neighborhood, so they want to harass people. They want to harass. And I could tell you that for a fact that they do this. Because, you know what? It happened to me and happened to friends of mine.
Look, Mike, you've never been arrested, I hope.
Oh, no, but they would like to, because I hold my cool. I understand what's going on, so I know how to relax.
All right, thank you very much. I suspect that Mike has a prejudice against police. I mean, it's very possible that that is why he is saying what he's saying, but when he says he's stopped, he's harassed, and then I ask him, you weren't arrested, were you? And he says, no. It makes me wonder. I'm not discounting the man's, shall we say, stated incident, but I suspect it might be a little overdrawn. Anyway, I tell you what we're going to do here. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to continue straight ahead.